Hey YouTube, it's your girl Dr. J, and I thought I would do a quick video on some of the resources that we use in helping our kids deal with things like perfectionism, which is a really big deal in our house, and also helping them with executive function, basically how to control their own behavior. Executive function is something that's really important for our kids to have in our household, because my husband and I decided really before we had kids that we would use non-physical discipline with our kids. So and that's been our route since we had kids. Basically, we don't spank or use any sort of physical discipline. We try not to yell. I'm going to say about 90% of the time we don't yell, but you know, I'm telling y'all, when it's that time of the month, everything gets yelled at in this house, including the books and furniture and other inanimate objects. But because I'm still working on my executive function, but for the most part we don't do that. We don't do timeout and that sort of stuff. So we had to make sure we had a plan, and how are we going to discipline our children, because we couldn't just let them run buck wild either. And so how are we going to make sure that we are helping them control their own behavior, but using the methods that we're most comfortable with? So these are some of the resources that have been really good for us in helping our kids work through some of the kind of typical kid stuff that you deal with: anger, frustration, all that sort of stuff. The biggest thing that we deal with, though, is perfectionism, and that is our kids getting frustrated and angry and emotional if something they're doing isn't turning out right, the day isn't going perfectly, something that they thought was going to be perfect isn't perfect. How do we deal with that? So some of the books that I've really liked, this book is called Miscellaneous, and it is by, I think, Deborah Fraser. And it's really a fun book because, you know, it's about a little girl. She was sick from school, and someone gave her the assignment, and she misheard, and she was supposed to be doing a vocabulary sheet on the word miscellaneous, but she heard it as miscellaneous and thought it was a person. And how does she deal with that kind of vocabulary disaster? So that's really a fun book, teaching kids how do you recover from, you know, big mistakes that you make for a kid. This book was just like winner chicken dinner for us. Like the kids love this book. It's The Girl Who Never Made a Mistake, and it is by Mark Pett and Gary Rubenstein, and it's about, you know, Beatrice Bottomwell, who never ever made a mistake. I mean, she had fans outside the house because she never made a mistake. Then one day she made an almost mistake, and then that led to an actual mistake. And it just goes through the process of, I mean, what happened to this perfect child who ended up not being so perfect. So this is a really, really fun book that the kids just get all into. This book, The Beautiful Oops, is just a really, really good book. It is by Barney Southberg, and it's just about, you know, how even if you have a oops, even if you have a mistake, you can turn it into something wonderful. Like it talks about, you know, you can have a ripped piece of paper, you know, so that's a rip, but you know, you can make it into something fun. So it's basically, you know, how to recover from your mistakes. And sometimes we'll just do beautiful oops art projects where, you know, I will tell them to, you know, intentionally make a mistake and let's turn it into something beautiful. And then when they do make a mistake in their artwork or with their writing or anything like that, we just stop and then talk, you know, we'll say, okay, here's an opportunity for a beautiful oops, and we go through it like that. So this was a really good book in kind of guiding us through that beautiful oops process. This book is called Ish, and it is by Peter Reynolds. And it is about, you know, a boy who he loved to draw, and his brother made fun of something that he drew, and then he didn't want to draw anymore, but his little sister was collecting his drawings, and, you know, she was like, oh, this is my favorite. He was like, that's supposed to be, you know, a vase. And he was like, but it doesn't look like a vase. And she's like, but it looks vase-ish. And so we really go from there in that, okay, yeah, that may not look like a house that you just drew, but it's house-ish. And even for, you know, instruments, okay, yeah, that didn't sound exactly like Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, but it was twinkle-ish. So it's just really neat in teaching kids about, you know, things are a process. We may not start out perfect, but that's okay. as long as we're moving there, and even when we're not perfect, we're still we're close, kind of there. So this was a really good book to talk about that. And then anything Alexander is good. This was Alexander in a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. It's just really good. I like it because Alexander actually doesn't make good choices. And so as we're reading through the book, we can talk about, okay, what did Alexander do? And what should he have done? Or what would you have done differently than Alexander? But he's also very real. And I love Alexander because it really reminds us adults that things that may not be a big deal to us, they are a big deal to kids. So it just helps me, really walk my kids through the good decision-making process. This book is called What to Do When You Worry Too Much. And it's a kid's guide to overcoming anxiety. And it was written by Dawn Hubner, who is a clinical psychologist. And I really like it because it actually has activities to walk your kids through. And it, talks about, having them talk, circle the things that what are the ways that you feel when you are worried? Do you have a headache? Are you dizzy? Are you nauseous? Does your heart race? How to make your worries go away? So it has different processes and different little activities for them to do to help them really be able to talk about what their worries are and get them out there, because a lot of times kids stay in worry, and even adults stay in worry because it stays in our head instead of getting out there and letting us talk about it and deal with it. So some of the things that we do, activities that we do is, what's the worst thing that you can think of? What's the worst thing that can happen? And then we say, okay, if that happens, how will we deal with it? What will we do next? And so just kind of working through that process and helping them own it and helping them work themselves through the process so that it's not mommy and daddy solving it for them, but mommy and daddy working as coaches to giving them the skills so they can begin to solve more and more of those worries on their own. Some worries are irrational. Some worries are not irrational. I mean, like my kids, they're scared of tornadoes. I mean, we've been through a F5, so that's a rational fear. So it's not just, don't worry about it, it'll never happen. Well, yeah, it can. So what will we do? So this is a really good book for helping your kids if they are worriers. This book I really like, A Boy and a Bear, a children's relaxation book. And this book is great. It's recommended for kids 3 to 10, and it takes them through the process of teaching them how to do deep breathing. And I know for us, when my kids are in the middle of having, a meltdown, or if they're really frustrated or in the zone, we really have to take them through breathing processes so they can calm down, just so we can talk about it, because we can't deal with it if you are crying and screaming and thrashing about. We can't solve any problems that way. So what we have to do a lot of times is take them through the deep breathing process. And now my kids have gotten to the point where they feel themselves if they're getting really anxious or if they're getting frustrated, and they will actually deep breathe themselves down without our intervention. And my twins are 6 and my oldest is 7, and they can do this on their own now, where if they feel themselves about to yell or scream or get mad, and then they'll just stop and literally take themselves through the breathing process and then come to us and talk about why they're angry or why they're frustrated or why they're sad. Another thing that's not necessarily in this book, but what we have found very helpful, is helping our children understand their emotions and putting the right names on emotions, so that our kids know they don't just come to us and say, I'm mad. They have to, we have really worked with them so that they understand the difference between frustration, anger, disappointment, so they can say, I am disappointed that we didn't go to Chuck E. Cheese like we were supposed to go to Chuck E. Cheese, and I'm frustrated with you, Mommy, because you said we were going to Chuck E. Cheese, and then we can talk through that, and then, we can say, no, Mommy didn't say will, Mommy said if, so let's work on your hearing, or whatever we have to do to work through the process. But I found that giving them the right words really helps. And we do that for everything. We do that for not just emotions, but even if they're sick. You don't just come and say sick. You say, this hurts. Well, how much does it feel like it's burning? Is it itching? Is it throbbing? What sort of pain are we dealing with? So we just like to give them the right words to deal with, so that we can all make sure that we're going on the same level and talking through things appropriately. And I found that giving them the words for their emotions really does help them to be able to work through things right, because sometimes you think you're mad, but what you really are is hurt, emotionally hurt. You think you're angry, but what you're really disappointed, and sometimes you are mad, like you're mad, like dog mad, like, yes, I am mad at you. So we found working through that, once we can identify it, we can work through it together. It's all good. Life's good. Another thing that I found has been very helpful in dealing with frustration and stuff like that, y'all, yoga. Okay, yoga is my friend. It's a friend of the children. And this set is really fun. It'll have the little like yoga poses, like you'll have the little pose, and then on the other side of the card you'll have the name of the pose, how to do the pose, and different activities that you can do with the pose. And there are tons of different poses that the kids can do, and it lets parents know exactly how to walk the kids through the process, what breathing they have to do with the different poses and stuff like that. Those are really good. And my kids really, really love this set. This is Yogarilla, and this is the one that we do outside a lot. We'll take our yoga mats outside on our patio and do these, and it has the yoga pose on the front, and then on the back it has the instructions for doing the pose, how to do it, what are adaptations and variations, and what sort of activities you can do with it. And they're pretty much your standard yoga poses. So it's just really fun. I mean, and this set has 55 cards. So, and the cards are really big, and the kids like them. And sometimes they'll just take out 10 cards, and we'll come up and do a yoga routine with it and stuff. And then they will just lead us through yoga routines and different, like each child will put together a yoga routine, and then we'll go through the different yoga poses and stuff. But yoga is really good because my kids tend to, if they're tense or frustrated, they tend to hold it in their body and get stiff, and yoga really helps them work that out, so that they're not all tense and all that kind of stuff. But that's been something that's really helpful for us. And then the other thing is just silly. I love like Skidamarinka Dinky Dink and little songs like this. I have found that the worse I sing, and y'all, I can't sing, the better my kids feel. So just kind of being silly, that helps too. But really, I have found that really like taking our time with executive function, taking our time with learning how to deal with emotions, letting them, and the biggest thing that we do with the executive function, the biggest thing that we teach in our home is that your feelings, your emotions, your attitude, that's all your responsibility. You are responsible for your attitude. It's not mommy's job to change your mind. It's not daddy's job to make you feel better. It is your job and your responsibility to learn how to do that on your own. It's your body. You have to own all of the feelings that go with it. You have to own all the emotions that go with it. And mommy and daddy can help you in the process, but it's really yours. Those are your feelings, your emotions. And sometimes my children may feel differently about something than I do. So, you may be disappointed because it's raining outside, but mommy's not, so, let's help you deal with that. Let me coach you through the process, but you have to ultimately take the responsibility in making yourself feel better. I can't make you feel better. Daddy can't make you feel better. You have to do that. And we felt like teaching them how to do that early would be the best thing. And it's been good so far. They're not perfect. I mean, they're still young. They have meltdowns and all that other kind of stuff, but they're getting better at knowing when a meltdown is coming on, managing it themselves, not drawing a big scene, not having, big issues. I mean, now they'll come to us and say, I am tired. I need to go to bed early. Mommy, I need a nap. Mommy, I'm feeling angry. Can I just sit down and can you just hold me? And that has made life so much easier to have kids that really can, they know when they don't feel well. They know when they need a break. They know when they I don't need to go to the grocery store because I am not in a good mood and it's not going to go well. So can you just leave me here with daddy and you go to the grocery store? That has been really, really helpful in the parenting journey, to have them be able to manage themselves a little bit better. And every year they get better with it. When they were 2, they weren't good at it at all, but now they're a lot better with the process. So just wanted to share those things and see if you have a perfectionistic child at home, or a child who's dealing with the learning executive function. Maybe some of those things will be helpful for you guys as well. Hope that helps. This is Dr. J, and I'm out. Bye-bye.